To be honest, it's pretty funny how the Attack on Titan fanbase turned from being such loyal supporters of Eren and his horrid actions into massive Eren haters in the span of one chapter, that chapter being chapter 139. Now, it's somewhat reasonable for people to not be fans of Eren anymore after what he did, but I find it really hypocritical that a lot of people were defending Eren when he was stomping the shit out of millions of innocent, but then seemed to have a problem with him for what he said in regards to Mikasa. His outlash to Armin about not wanting Mikasa to move on from him is seen as pathetic and damaging to his character, but I think it's quite beautiful as it expresses Eren's attachment to the actual important things in his life while he was in the midst of understanding that his obsession on the notion of freedom turned him into a slave and blinded him to the good things in his life. Personally, I wasn't a Yeagerist as people deemed themselves during the release of Season 4, nor was I a Marley apologist. I was just patiently waiting for Isayama to give a full scope of reasoning for Eren's behavior before I completely dismissed him as an evil person or a tragic guy who was actually justified. So as someone who neither defended nor thought of him as the devil incarnate, witnessing the fandom jump from one boat to the opposite was astounding. With the conclusion, some have realized the tragedy of Eren's character while still not totally forgiving him, and others have said that Eren deserves no pity. Now that we have all seen the conclusion to this beautiful story, I say Eren does deserve pity 100%, so this is why you should feel bad for Eren Yeager. Obviously, if you're the type who still can't get over the atrocities Eren has committed, you may be thinking, how and why the fuck should I pity a dickhead like him? That is because Eren is a person bounded by the chains of fate to which he himself created. As someone who expresses his distaste for enslavement and yearns for liberation, it is quite fitting that the MC to this tale on how to achieve true freedom is someone who is intrinsically incapable of achieving said true freedom. The story does a great job of making us support him, because everything we know up until Season 3 is everything Eren knows, so of course we're going to side with him and his reasoning. But as the story introduces a whole new world, as the reader, you should have shifted from being totally supportive of Eren to being slightly skeptical and cautious of still one-sidedly defending Eren, because with the introduction of Marley and the rest of the world, the story gains more nuance and introduces the subtle theme of conversing. The importance of hearing one another out is highlighted even more as both Marley and Paradise are shown to be incapable of sitting down and talking their problems out. This blatant ignorance to feed into one's own ego for stuff that doesn't really matter is not only embodied by the tragic history of Marley and Paradise, but also in Eren's journey. At the end of Season 3, when the Paradise folks see the sea for the first time, they're overcome with bewilderment and joy. All but one person, Eren. Obviously, we were all questioning his reaction because wasn't seeing the sea one of his dreams? Well, of course it was, but Eren can't bring himself to feel joy because he's blocked by his own ego. His ego makes him believe he's still caged in a birdcage, and just because he's physically free from the walls of Paradise in the moment, doesn't mean he's truly free, as there remains the enemies he saw in his father and Kruger's memories. Eren isn't wrong to still think he's truly not free, as the threat of Marley was always there, it was just hidden up until that point. But that doesn't mean Eren shouldn't enjoy the sea and let worries and threats go for a moment. But Eren can bring himself to do that. He cannot bring himself to sit still and enjoy the simple natural beauty he's always wished for. Because Eren's desire for freedom isn't just as simple as him wanting to do whatever he wants. Eren's desire for freedom is so layered and intense, he influenced the past in order to make his present self want freedom so bad. From here on, I would like you to imagine two Erens. The first Eren being present Eren, the normal Eren we've been seeing up until the scene in which Eren kissed Historia's hand. This Eren is untainted by the past or the future and merely moves forward according to the knowledge and feeling he has in the present moment. The second Eren is founding Eren. This Eren is the Eren after he kissed Historia's hand and subsequently got all the memories from the past Attack Titans and can now also glimpse into the future. This Eren comes from the founding Titan power that awakened in combination with the Attack Titan power, and it not only allows its user to see the memories of its past and future holders, but to also directly influence and change the past. Now, the reason why you should feel bad for Eren is because present Eren is manipulated by founding Eren so that present Eren has enough motivation to satiate founding Eren's hunger for liberty. We see it in Eren's subtle manipulation of Kruger to do what he did for the sake of Mikasa and Armin. We see it in Eren's direct manipulation of Grisha, his own father, to massacre the Race family. And finally, probably the most twisted of it all, we see it in Eren's manipulation of Dinah to avoid Berthold and go straight for his mother to eat her. The innocent and naive kid we saw for 3 seasons wouldn't have wanted any of this at all. To force Kruger to do all the horrors he did for the sake of Mikasa and Armin, to force his own father to massacre a family, and to have indirectly orchestrated his own mother's death would have broken present Eren apart if you would have told him all of this prior to him kissing Historia's hand, which is why there was an external force that gave him enough fuel to do all the cruel things he did in the end. That is, founding Eren. Founding Eren is aware that Eren, as selfish of an individual he is, has a kind heart, so founding Eren took the time to manipulate the past so that present Eren has enough motivation to change the future to the outcome he wants. Eren clearly regrets his actions, but the stream of fate has been moving even before he was born. He begs Ramsay for forgiveness for what he's about to do, but in all honesty, couldn't he have chosen to not go with the rumbling if he's aware of how bad of a decision it is? No, because ultimately Eren's not responsible for his fate. Founding Eren is. So while present Eren knows just how much of a fucked up thing he's going to do, he still goes with it as he realizes founding Eren has dug too deep of a hole for present Eren to crawl out of. Essentially, we can summarize everything I've said so far as founding Eren enslaving present Eren to achieve his delusional definition of freedom by going through time and fucking things over to make present Eren driven enough to commit the atrocities to satiate founding Eren's corrupted desire to be free. Now this sounds pretty fucked up, but the silver lining is within Eren's conclusion. In his conversation with Armin in chapter 139, we get the second most famous panel in all of AOT, Grounded. The panel that indicates Eren finally being grounded in reality and becoming free from the control of founding Eren is so noteworthy because it contrasts the most famous panel of Attack on Titan, the Freedom panel from chapter 131. To elaborate on the Grounded panel, we have to first talk about the Freedom panel. In the Freedom panel, we see a kid version of Eren with his arms spread out and a genuine smile on his face on top of what it seems to be clouds, but those are not clouds. Those are smoke coming from the burning trampling left by all the colossal Titan under Eren's command. It is also important to highlight that the fact that the one above the smoke isn't adult Eren, but rather kid Eren, for this hints at Eren's inability to truly take responsibilities for the horrors that he has committed. Children are naive and innocent. They don't look at the cruelty the world has to offer, so they reject said cruelty and only take in things that make them joyous. In other words, Kid Eren represents Eren's escapism, unable to bear the burden of killing so many people. Present Eren regressed back into his youth as a defense mechanism from the control of founding Eren's enslavement. Eren's reasoning and justification are incredibly vague and wishy-washy, as his mind is a jumbled mess due to the influence of the founding Titan power. It's why he appears to realize that the Eldians are the source of problems, and if they were to disappear, the Titan problem would disappear. But he doesn't want to accept that. Eren rationalizes the situation at hand, but for some inexplicable reason he can't accept it. There's also the fact that he chose to save Ramsay from the beatings of those guys, despite knowing he's gonna kill him. His innate kindness still pleads out in the face of the hand of the fate that controls him. So while the Freedom panel represents Eren's reluctance to face reality and hide away from the consequences brought on by the founding Eren's manipulation of present Eren, the Grounded panel serves as a contrast to the Freedom panel, for in this moment, Eren is now grounded in reality. With nothing to stand atop, he lies on the ground, witness to the destruction he carved. Another thing to note is that in the Freedom panel, Eren is a kid, but in the Grounded panel, Eren is an adult. As an adult, you can't shy away from the cruel reality that awaits, especially if you've done things in which there are consequences. Only a child has that privilege. The delusion founding Eren fed present Eren in order to rile him up and convince him he has no other choice but to move forward, dissipates, and all that he can see in front of him is no longer a path to move forward on, but rather a flattened, destroyed, blank plane. Eren is then left to ponder just why he had to do what he did, and he says he doesn't know, once again alluding to somewhat of an external force controlling him, this external force obviously being founding Eren. Founding Eren is cursed with the burden of seeing the past, present, and future all at once. With this burden, Eren's perception of reality is incredibly muddied. Think of it this way. Eren is a human being, and human beings are three-dimensional beings who only exist in the present. We can understand the concept of the past and the future, but we cannot exist in them simultaneously. In comes the ability of the Founding Titan. The Founding Titan makes you witness the past, present, and future simultaneously as you exist. A normal human being cannot, by the laws of nature, comprehend, nor can they tolerate such an ability, because a normal human being can only influence the present through their own will, but when the past, present, and future are all set in stone in front of your eyes, any notion of free will and agency is gone. So with the ability of the Founding Titan, Eren sought to change the past enough so that he could feel like he had agency, but at the end of the day, he was merely a 3D human cursed with a 4D concept known as time. In a nutshell, Founding Eren, alongside his Attack Titan power, manipulated previous Attack Titan holders to continuously march forward for his gain. In Chapter 88, Eren Kruger states that the Attack Titan has always moved ahead, sought and fought on for freedom. Obviously, he's referring to the past Attack Titan shifters who were influenced by Founding Eren. In essence, everyone is a victim of Founding Eren, including present Eren himself. Founding Eren manipulated the past so much just so that present Eren, could bend to his will because he's aware that such lust for freedom is something no normal human being would follow through without the right incentive. Eren's definition of freedom is corrupted and extremely harmful, but thankfully that's why Mikasa and Armin exist. Founding Eren's definition of freedom is an unsatiable, unachievable pursuit towards freedom, as his thinking process is certainly not stable enough to understand what freedom is and how to achieve it within the constraints of being a human being. Armin represents the acceptance side of humans, the part of us that realizes we are humans at the end of the day, and sometimes we need to accept reality and find our freedom and happiness within the birdcage we are in. Armin lived in the same walls as Eren, but yet Armin fondly recalls their simple memories of racing to a tree, essentially saying the small good times they had was what defined happiness and freedom for him. In the case of Mikasa, people often call her a slave to Eren, just like Ymir was to Fritz, but despite her enslavement to Eren, Mikasa still chose to find comfort within her connection with Eren. In her conclusion, the bird, who is obviously representing Eren, picks up the scarf and wraps it around her. The scarf represents Mikasa's ability to find solace and peace in her pain of losing Eren. Both Mikasa and Armin basically tell us and Eren that freedom and fulfillment is found in the little acts we do unto one another. You are as free as you dictate yourself to be, but when you tell yourself you are not free, then of course you're not going to be free. Eren's downfall was ultimately his inability to cherish the present due to his corrupted perception of time and reality, which then led him to believe he's not free at all, to which we can't honestly blame him for. To cut a long fucking story short, Eren is a man bound by concepts he cannot begin to understand, and to that fact he cannot see reality as a normal human being should. He is controlled by a version of him, that version being Founding Eren, that exists at all points of time in history, who is seeking to be free from the chains of fate, and in his quest to free himself from the chains of fate, Founding Eren bounds Eren to his own chains of fate, effectively rendering present Eren a slave for the sake of Founding Eren's freedom. And I know this may sound extremely redundant and unnecessary, and I kinda agree that it is, but I like this interpretation as it allows an insight into the broken psyche of Eren. People dismiss him as someone whose evil actions are pretty straightforward, but after understanding the severity of the things that bound Eren, it is hard to dumb down his actions as merely selfish. A general way to interpret Eren's behavior is that of a man fueled by his ego, who's unable to accept the reality in front of him, and so decides to steal others' freedom in order to gain his. This isn't wrong at all, but I feel like it downplays the tragedy of Eren's mind and why he truly does deserve pity. If you don't agree with my interpretation, that's perfectly fine, but how about interpreting Founding Eren as his out-of-control ego? Think of Eren as a slave and a victim of his own ego rather than Eren being fueled by his ego.